welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday, and you know what that means? It's time for Perpetual Motion, the class where we never stop moving. And I hope that you haven't frozen into a tiny ice cube over the last weekend, because, man, the temperatures in the United States right now are pretty terrifying, I must say. Everything coming out of Texas is just so scary. And I mean, you know, when you have extreme weather events like that, of a type that an area is not built or prepared to deal with, it's always just really scary to look at and be like, oh my God, you know, they don't know how to deal with this, because that's not what usually happens in Texas. So if you are watching from Texas, I really hope that you are staying warm, that you're not being impacted. I know many people are. Many people I know are being impacted, and in scary ways too. You know, not just I can't leave my house, but I haven't had power or heat for several days in freezing temperatures, or you know, I have giant icicles hanging from my ceiling. Global weirding. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So, but even those of us who live in areas where we are used to cold weather, have also been struggling. In case you missed the tweet, or the post that I did about stream today, I woke up on Sunday morning to discover that the furnace had stopped at some point during the night, and it was in fact -8 degrees out. So that was a lot of fun, trying to deal with that. Not having a furnace in -degree weather is do not recommend a suboptimal experience. Thankfully, the issue was pretty small. It was just a blown fuse, and as soon as the fuse was replaced, the furnace worked okay and has been working fine ever since. But yeah, every once in a while I call down, you know, do the whisper to the not inanimate object, like, thank you, furnace, for everything you do. Please don't stop working again. There's the sound of it right now. You know, suddenly it's a much more soothing sound. But yeah, it's been pretty wild, all over the place. We didn't get a ton of, I mean, we got a nice snowfall, and there's more snow predicted this week, but you know, we didn't get ridiculous amounts of snow. We got sort of a normal amount, a few inches. But yeah, some of the snowfalls that I've been seeing, speaking of weather in places that are not prepared for it, some of the videos of the snow coming out of Washington State, Seattle area, is just crazy. So yes, no matter where you live, no matter whether or not your area is used to snowy weather and super cold temperatures, I hope you are staying safe, and staying warm, and yeah, not having to deal with no heat, no electricity in the middle of record low temperatures. Whee! But you're here, so that's good. It means at least you have internet and electricity, which are kind of the only two like requirements for showing up to class. So that's good. And you know, we can work out and we can keep ourselves warm that way. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's a good start to the week so far. For those of you who did have a day off yesterday, I hope that it was wonderful and relaxing. And for those of you who did not have a day off, I hope that we can break down late-stage capitalism in my lifetime, so that you are not being taken advantage of in the way that frontline workers frequently are. And if yesterday was completely unchanged from your usual schedule, cool. I hope your day went as expected. Oh my goodness. But Now it's time to get this week kicked off. So welcome to Perpetual Motion, the class where we never stop moving. If this is your first time, hi. Just as a warning, not a warning, but an advisory. So the structure of this class is a little bit different from the rest of my classes. When we say perpetual motion, we mean it. So normally in a class, we would finish a workout segment, and the final horn would go off and we would go, cool, now I will stand around, drink some water, etc., etc. Today, when a workout segment ends and the final horn goes off, you will immediately begin doing our active rest exercise, which in this case is cross jacks, which I will demonstrate when they become relevant, but they're very easy to pick up. Yes, so from the time that we begin the warm-up to the time that we finish class, you will be moving the whole time. So the other tagline I like to use is, this is the half marathon of HIIT classes. We do not stop moving. Our goal is to keep moving for the entire hour, okay? Keeping in mind that I want you to listen to your body, and if you are like, I really need to stop moving right now for a little bit and take a break, honor that. Don't try and push through pain or other signals from your body just because the teacher sat up here and said, yeah, you have to keep moving the whole time, okay? But know that that is our goal, okay? So yeah, it's intense. And if this is your very first class of any kind, I tell you to focus on the bare minimum, which is starting on time, stopping on time, and doing the exercise correctly. We don't really have stopping on time today because we're not really stopping anything. So don't try and impress me. I can't see you. Just do your best. Don't try and give 100% energy or 110% energy or anything like that. Just focus on starting on time, continuing to move for the entirety of class, and doing the exercise correctly, okay? And if you just focus on those three things, you will get an amazing workout, and you will actually hopefully want to come back to class, which is really our overarching goal. Oh God, yeah, it's weird to find. I feel like winter really brings out the differences in temperatures, just like regular core temperatures for different rooms in the house. Like, I'm on the 3rd floor right now. Well, I guess 2nd floor technically, because it's basement, 1st, 2nd. And this room always seems to be pretty warm. And then the bedroom is definitely cooler, but they're on the same floor, so I'm not sure what the difference is. It's probably the placement of the ductwork in the house. But yeah, always fun when you have a room whose temperature just doesn't adhere to expectations around it. So I hope you're keeping warm. Again, I hope everyone's keeping warm. But for now, yeah. Oh, Atlanta. It's been a while since I never had to go through a winter in Atlanta. And I don't remember summer being that bad, but again, it's been, well over a decade since I last lived anywhere near Atlanta. All right, let's do our pre-class checklist. Hang on. Pro tip, try not to inhale when you're also trying to swallow, because then you might swallow things down the wrong pipe. Yeah, just in case you weren't aware of that. All right, pre-class checklist, my friends. Everything that you need to get through class today, starting with water in whatever vessel you choose to use. I've got my giant mason jar. We're at home, so, if you want to just line up a series of pint glasses filled with water, that's totally fine, all right? You can do whatever you want. It's amazing. You got your comfy clothes on, whatever that means to you. You've got your mat or mat-sized space on the floor. And if you use a fitness wearable, now's the time for us to turn them on to a high-intensity interval training setting. Not a requirement, just something I like to remind people of because I need the reminder myself. Alrighty. So, how do we start class? Well, Pinky, we start class the same way every day, with our warm up. So we're gonna head over onto our mats. Oh God. I have an offshoot to my mat now so that I can do shrimps again, because I've missed them, and I'm sure you have too. But it does mean that there's just sort of these awkward puzzle pieces floating in the middle of the room right now. All right, so warm up time. Same warm up for every class, which is wonderful because it means if you've done one class, then you know what the warm up is. So everybody, on your mats, on your backs, 1 foot crossed over the opposite knee, and when you hear that timer go off, we will begin with hip rocks and bridges. All right, so hip rocks and bridges are truly as easy as they sound. So we start by contracting our abdominals to lift our hips up into the air, and then when we return the standing foot to the floor, we come up onto the ball of that foot and then bridge our hips up like that. And we just go back and forth between those two positions. We are not trying to go for super huge movement. All right, this is the warm up. This is our boot up sequence, okay? We are not expecting or trying to be running at 100% energy output, all right? We want to get our systems ready to go for class. So we want to give our brain the opportunity to engage itself and go, oh, okay, so I need to start sending signals down to the muscles to let them know it's time to work. All right, other side, same thing. And we want to give our muscles and our muscle fibers the opportunity to go, all righty, it appears that we are beginning some exercise, so I need to turn on the energy production system, start breaking down some of those fuel stores into a usable form so that we have the energy that we need to make it through class, okay? So we are not here trying to rock our hips up as high as they can go and trying to, bridge our hips up as high as they can go like that. Like, we don't need that at all. That is not our goal. We are just trying to get the muscles used to moving and signal them that it is time for us to exercise. All right, so now for our leg sequence, lying straight on our side in a nice straight line of the body. We're doing our best Jane Fonda impression. Okay, so this is an abductor exercise, which means that we are moving the leg away from the midline of the body. I always get abductor and adductor mixed up, and I'm pretty positive I have it corrected today. That's the problem with having two words that are almost identical, except for one letter. But yeah, we are trying to lie our body in as straight a line as possible. And if you struggle with getting into that position without help, well, the edge of your mat, the long edge of your mat, is the perfect tool to use to line up against and start to feel what it feels like to be lined up nicely in a straight line. All right, top foot flat on the floor in front of the bottom knee. We're lifting the bottom leg. So now we are doing an adductor movement, and we are moving the leg towards the midline, okay? And this particular position requires, obviously, the bottom leg to be working, but it also requires engagement in the hip to make sure that this knee is staying straight up and down, pointing up towards the ceiling and not trying to cave forward, okay? So depending on where your hip flexibility is, this may be super easy. All right, this is my more flexible hip, which means that I can really just sort of set my foot up and be like, all right, I'm good to go. I don't need to really worry about this. So we'll talk more about this on the other side, but you may have to do more work to maintain this position, depending on your hip flexibility. All right, and last but not least, on this first side, we're doing our beach position, our beach pose. So that top foot is flat on the floor behind the bottom knee now. We're still lifting that bottom leg. And this is our easiest position to maintain. We're not worried about our hips rolling backwards because we've got this leg set up here. We're not worried about the knee caving in because this is much more in line with where our hip already was. So we're not having to do anything to pull the knee backwards. We're not worried about our hips rolling forwards because they're at a bit of an angle. So we can really just focus in on the leg lift itself, all right? And noticing what muscle groups are really engaging for that leg lift. Obviously the inner thigh, but you're probably also going to feel some engagement coming all the way up into the lower abdominals. All right, so now we go to the other side. We did the same 3 things again. So we go back to the Jane Fonda. If this is your first time, or you're still, in your first month or so, you may notice that this may feel a little bit more intense than it did on the first side. And if you're going, well, why? It's the same exercise. I don't understand why it would be harder. Well, that's because this is the 3rd interval in a row that this leg has been your working leg. Because when we were on the first side, it was the bottom leg 2 times in a row. And then we flipped over, and now suddenly it's the top leg, and we're doing the Jane Fondas again. So you will build up that stamina eventually. And obviously, again, we're not going for super power and intensity here. But if that's something that you notice, just know that it has a perfectly logical explanation. All right, now back to top foot, flat on the floor, in front of the bottom knee, lifting that bottom leg. So on this side, my hip is far less flexible. And so if I just sort of leave it to its own devices, you see how my knee wants to start caving forward. So I have to engage the muscles in the back of that hip socket to pull that knee back and then to keep it there safely positioned. So if I was standing on this leg, my knee would go straight forward over my foot. All right, and this is a great place to practice that activation, to practice that safe knee positioning, because we're not putting any pressure on the leg, so it's not going to be harmed if it starts caving forward, but you get to start seeing what it feels like to engage those muscle groups and to really maintain that position. All right, now last but not least, our beach pose again on side 2, getting the really chillax, as the kids when I was a kid would say. I don't know, it's one of those things where you look back and you're like, did we ever really actually say that, or was pop culture just trying to convince us that we were? I think we did a little bit, but I feel like it was ironic the whole time. Who knows? Language is such a weird thing. I love it, but it is truly fascinating. But yeah, so we are just chilling here, again, focusing in on the leg lift itself. Take every opportunity that you can to really pay attention to what it feels like to have different muscle groups engaged and working in different positions and for different exercises, all right? It's all part and parcel of learning more about our bodies and how they interact with exercise. All right, so now we come into our scorpion twist. So this is the beginning of our sequence to open up our backs and our hips, which are 2 areas that if you work from a desk all day, they probably aren't getting a ton of help and movement, and they're probably feeling a little stiff. So this is our first opportunity to stretch out our spine, keeping those elbows firmly planted on the ground. They do not go anywhere, okay? So if you can't hit this position without your elbow coming up, then you are not quite flexible enough to hit that position, and you need to dial it back a little bit, okay? There is never any problem with that, all right? The most important thing is to be honest with ourselves. Now, grabbing our imaginary PVC pipes, taking a nice wide-ish stance, and we're doing these giant torso rotations, changing directions every couple of rotations because we're only doing this for one timer interval. So you want to make sure that you're evening yourself out. So I'll do 2 rotations and then I'll switch directions. And remember that you are initiating the movement from your hips, okay? We're not moving the arms and then trying to follow. The arms are staying in the same position relative to my head the whole time. I'm initiating the movement by folding over at the hips. All right, now keeping those arms in that same position, it's our first chance at squats. So this is where we start paying attention to that form work that we did during the leg sequence, practicing keeping our knees in that nice safe position. Well, here we go. This is where that all comes home to help us. So you want to make sure your knees are going straight over your feet each time and not caving in towards each other at any point, okay? So if you can make it down here safely, but as you try to stand up, they start pulling together, narrow your stance, all right? Test here, go, okay, I can maintain the position here, so I'll practice in this stance until I feel strong enough that I can go back and see if I can do the wider stance. All right, now for our Samson stretches, okay? So this is a nice stretch to open up the front of the hip flexor, okay? So you have this nice deep lunge with one leg straight behind you. And we're just lifting our arms up towards the ceiling. You'll see a little curve in my back just because of the nature of the position, but I'm not actively trying to bend backwards, okay? So don't try to reach your arms behind your head. That is not the movement. Make sure you're keeping your hips facing forward the whole time, okay? We're not trying to open one hip out. That's a warrior 2. You want those hips facing ahead of you the whole time. All right. And now we come over here for our wide squat position with shoulder twists, okay? So we had the twist in the lower to mid spine in the scorpion twist, and now we're getting the upper spine in there. I am just holding the squat position, okay? I have my hands on my knees, which helps me to keep them safely positioned. It makes it a little easier, which is always nice. And otherwise, the only things moving are my shoulders, okay? So I'm not coming up and down out of the squat. I'm not letting my knee try and trail after my shoulder as it twists in towards the midline. We're just twisting the spine, and everything else is remaining nice and stable. All right, cardio time, starting with jumping jacks. And again, just because we've made it to cardio time does not mean that we are suddenly going for full intensity, all right? This is still the warm-up, and we've been ramping up our energy output throughout the warm-up, and you can feel that, you know, it's structured very deliberately to sort of guide that ramp up, but we're still not at 100%, and we should not get to 100% even by the end of the warm-up, even by that last exercise, all right? So I'm just doing pretty bare minimum jumping jacks. I'm not jumping my feet out super widely. I'm keeping my elbows bent, just sort of tapping my fingers above my head. All right. And now for our kick-throughs, which is our most complex warm-up exercise. So one hand flat on the floor, shoulder directly over wrist. The opposite leg is your standing leg. You want that at a 90-degree angle with the knee pointing up towards the ceiling. I kick the other free leg across my body, and then I put that other hand down, switch to the other side, and I just go back and forth and back and forth, okay? Keeping in mind that you can move as slowly as you need to on this until you get all the components under control, okay? There are a lot of moving parts to the kick-throughs, so don't feel like you need to ramp the speed up until you've gotten used to them. All right, last but not least, we've got our burpees, and we do these with a wave push-up, all right? And then a nice victory clap up at the top. Now this is the end of the warm-up, so as soon as you hear that final horn go off, we will transition into our active rest exercise, which is cross jacks. All right, so don't fall over when you hear that final horn. Don't stop moving. Make sure you stand up immediately, quick as you can, and start doing those cross jacks with me. All right, so cross jacks are a relative of jumping jacks. I'm gonna jump my feet out, and when I jump them in, cross one foot in front of the other, jump them out, in, switch which foot is in front. And the arms are doing the same thing, out, in, all right? If you wanna modify, a couple of modifications, you can do the arms and just kick the feet forward. You can also just go side to side like that. Just make sure you keep moving, all right? I am going to stop moving when we get to these points, just because, you know, I'm the teacher and I need to conserve some additional lung capacity to be able to talk the whole time. But you should be doing cross jacks this whole time, all righty? Oh, okie dokie. So we're gonna really dig in. We're gonna go for some intensity today. So we are gonna start with a perpetual motion set, and it's gonna be 1 minute work intervals, okay? So we will have 3 exercises. We'll go through them 3 times each, 1 minute intervals. When you hear the horn, you transition right into the next exercise, okay? And what are those exercises going to be, I hear you ask? Well, they are going to be the first 2 exercises are the same exercise, just first side, then second side. It's going to be this nice extended crunch, okay? So I'm going to have myself lying on the floor, one arm coming behind my head, not lying on the ground, lifted, shoulder engaged, and then I'm going to contract my abdominals and pull my arm towards the opposite leg, and down and up and down and up and down. So you will feel the majority of the engagement on the side of the body where the leg is lifting, okay? That's the side of the abdominals that you'll really feel. And then second exercise is just the other side, all right? Like that. And then our third exercise is going to be turtle waves. So whenever we have a turtle exercise, we start by rolling up onto the shoulders and then up onto the feet. And for this one, we're going to plant our hands, jump back into our plank, do a wave push-up, jump the feet forward, and repeat. Okay? So those are our 2 exercises. So you're still cross-jacking away. Well, there's technically 3 exercises. You're still cross-jacking away, my friends. And as soon as you hear the horn, you will need to get down onto the floor and begin with side 1 of the extended crunches, okay? So that's a big component of starting on time, is making sure that you are minimizing the amount of time that it takes you to get from the exercise you are currently doing to the exercise that you need to begin doing, okay? That is going to be your biggest focus point for today, because we're not stopping moving, you know. So when we're doing a class with a lot of Tabata intervals in it, it's really easy to start on time and stop on time, because you're coming from a rest position. So, all right, switch sides, second exercise. Yeah, when you're doing the Tabata, you're coming from rest. So you get to prep yourself, you get to get into an optimal starting position, and then when you hear the horn, you get to just start right there. With perpetual motion sets, you're never starting from a rest position. You are always starting from a totally different exercise. And sometimes that exercise has you in a totally different plane, you know. You may be, as we just were, doing something on your feet and then required to immediately transition down to a position on the floor. So, all right, time for those turtle waves. So what you need to focus on is, how do I transition as quickly as possible from one exercise to the other? You know, what do I need to keep in mind so that I am minimizing the amount of time that it takes for me to get from A to B to C and back to A, all right? So that is what I really want you to focus on, particularly in this first set where we're kicking class off. So, you know, I want you to really focus in and go, all right, how do I get from one to the next? This set, honestly, once we made it out of the cross jacks, this set's pretty easy, because we're doing all 3 exercises on the ground, and the first 2 are the same exercise, just side 1 and side 2, so you don't even have to really go anywhere. And the third exercise starts from lying on your back and then rocking up on your shoulders. So this is about as easy as it's going to get for transitioning between exercises, okay? And the fact that you have a full minute on each exercise means that you have time to switch to side 2 of the extended crunch. But you have time to think about, okay, how do I get from what I'm currently doing to what I know I need to do next. And for some exercises, you have to also consider where in the overall flow of the movement you might be. So when you're transitioning out of turtle waves, for example, there's a huge difference between transitioning from here and transitioning from here or here. You know, if what I now need to do is get onto my back and do an extended crunch, it's a very different proposition, and you need to be prepared. Speaking of, now you're doing turtle waves again, but you need to be prepared to be able to get from A to B, no matter where you are in the movement flow for the exercise you're currently on. Some exercises, it's easy. You know, if I'm doing flying chickens, there are only so many places I'm going to be while I'm doing that exercise, and any transition obviously will require me to land. So I'm basically always guaranteed to be moving into the next exercise from here. But as you can see with something like turtle waves, there is a variety of positions that you could be in, and you need to know how to get from there to the extended crunch, no matter where you are in the overall flow. So really focus on that, particularly for this first set, all right? We are not here to really worry about extensive energy pushes again. So when we talk about this being the half marathon of HIIT classes, for any of you who've ever run a road race, you know that you don't want to sprint across the starting line and really just go full tilt at the very beginning, because you're going to just run through all of your energy so quickly, and then you won't have any energy to get through the rest of the race. So it's the same thing for a class like this. You're going to be moving the whole time, and you need to be able to have enough energy to maintain that movement through the whole hour that we're taking class. So always keep that in mind, particularly in today's class. You know, we're out of the warm-up, but we still need to pay attention to how we are managing our energy. And it's a give and take, because as we get stronger and our stamina increases, we then have to have a continued conversation with our brains, which tend to be stuck a little farther behind in terms of what they think we can do and what our body is physiologically capable of. So it is something that we do have to pay attention to, but you know, you can figure that out pretty easily, I would say. So just keeping in mind, this is just the first set, okay? We've still got plenty of class to go before we get to the end when you can stop moving. So make sure that you are managing your energy as effectively as possible, so that you have the energy to get all the way through the entirety of class. All right, man, this was, all right, stand up and immediately into those cross jacks. This was a much more core intensive set than I necessarily thought it was going to be. So, hey, it's a good way to start off class with some nice core strengthening. I promise I didn't necessarily do that deliberately, but I'm also never sorry to help you strengthen your core. Oh, and don't forget to drink water, okay? Even though you're moving the whole time, you can still drink water. Again, if you've ever run a road race, you have mastered the precarious art of drinking liquid safely while probably panting and trying to bounce around and keep moving, all right? So that is an important skill for this class because we need to still be drinking our water. It is very important. All right. Oh, now we're gonna do a quick perpetual motion set with just 30-second work intervals. All right, just to give us a little bit of decompression from that super intense core sequence before I give you more core stuff to do. So we're gonna do 2 exercises and just go back and forth between them. And the 2 exercises, first one's gonna be skips. All right, so we're just skipping in place on our mat. All right, one knee up, opposite arm up, hop, and switch. And then second exercise is gonna be push-ups. So you can do wall push-ups. You can do incline push-ups off of a piece of furniture. You can do our nice traditional plank push-up. You can do push-ups from the knees. You can do half plank, half wave, full wave. Any variation I'm fine with. The only requirements, make sure your shoulders are directly over your wrists the whole time. And as you go down and come back up, you want to keep your elbows glued to your sides, all right? Not letting them fan out while you're in motion. To really focus the movement on your triceps, all righty? So those are our exercises. Skips and push-ups, 30-second work intervals. Hang on, just updating the timer there. And you're still cross-jacking away. And as soon as you hear that starting horn, you just go immediately into skips. So that was a much easier transition than having to get all the way down onto the floor for those extended crunches. And skips are a cardio exercise that I like for perpetual motion because I still place it in the cardio basket, but they're not nearly as intense as a lot of the other exercises that we do for cardio. All right, and now we are down here doing our push-ups. So I don't want you to bully yourself into doing a version of push-ups that you do not feel ready for, all right? There's a lot of obnoxious attitudes around different ways of doing push-ups, and you know, in the 90s, there's a lot of that like, oh, push-ups from the knees, that's the wimpy option, that's for girls crap. I give you all of those possible variations for a reason, because they are all going to do great things for you. And I truly want you to be doing the version of push-ups that you feel like you can safely maintain, all right? So yeah, don't worry about anybody's shitty opinions, okay? You're working out in your living room. You don't have to answer to anybody. All right, So we're just about halfway through. As soon as that horn goes off, we go back to our skips, and we're really trying to stay in the same spot on the mat, okay? So if you're moving around a ton, just try to rein it in, okay? We're putting the foot down directly back where we lifted it up from as best we can so that we're really staying in one place the whole time. Alrighty? Yeah. And back to our push-ups. So check in on that form. Alright? The form is non-negotiable. The form is something that we want to be paying close attention to every single time. Okay? So make sure that you are checking in every time and that you are hanging on to that form and being honest with yourself when you feel like you're going to lose it, okay? So that you can make a modification, or if you really need to, take a quick break and regroup, all right? Again, like I said at the beginning of class, obviously our goal for today is to keep moving the whole time, but if your body is telling you that you need to stop and rest for a second, or you're not going to be able to safely continue class, well, you listen to it, all right? I'm not the one living in your body. You're the one living in your body. And one of the most important skills that we learn is how to communicate with our bodies so that we're keeping ourselves as safe as possible. All righty? All right. And now, immediately back to whatever version of cross jacks you're up to. Make sure you're grabbing your water. Knee push-ups, exactly. I mean, I do them all the time. And like, it's not that I can't do plank push-ups, and I can, but particularly when I'm teaching, I'm like, I'm gonna get just as good of a workout from the knee push-ups, and I'm gonna help conserve some of my lung capacity so I can keep chattering away at y'all. Alrighty. Woo! Everybody, breathing as best you can. That is the goal of the active rest. I know it seems counterintuitive because you're still moving, but I do want you to use that opportunity to bring your heart rate down a little, to bring your breathing back under control a little. All right, so again, bare minimum for that exercise. That is not an exercise that we're going for lots of intensity on, all right? Okay, now I'm going to give you an AMRAP set. So in my class, you've probably heard that term if you've done CrossFit. What I use it for in my class is I set a 5-minute timer and I give you 3 exercises, and you get to move through those exercises at your own pace. So there's going to be no horn telling you when to transition. You get to make that determination. The only requirements, you do have to do all 3 of them. You can't skip an exercise just because you don't like it, and which is obvious today because it's Perpetual Motion Day, but even if it weren't, you have to keep moving the whole time, all right? So first exercise is going to be shrimps because I missed them and I haven't done them in a while because I didn't have a good mat set up for it, but now I do. So for shrimps, we are setting ourselves up in a boat rock position, contracting those abdominals to round our backs, and we are going to move back and forth along the mat. First shoulders, then hips. Woo, I rolled off my mat. There we go. Shoulders, then hips, shoulders, then hips, and then we start going back in the opposite direction, okay? So we're just going back and forth along that mat. Second exercise is actually going to be flying chickens, because this is a good place to put it in because you don't have a set amount of time that you have to do them. So here we are, flying chickens, a relative of the jumping jack, but we're jumping our feet apart in the air and then putting them back down exactly where they started. Thumbs at chest height. If you wear a bra, you can just hook your thumbs behind your bra straps. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, okay? And then our third exercise is going to be side-to-side planks. So starting from that front plank position, let the heels come over, come right up onto one arm, extend the other one up towards the ceiling, hold for a second, let the judges see it, then back through the center and to the other side, and we just go back and forth and back and forth. All right, everybody on your mats, cross-jacking away. We're gonna have one horn in the middle of this timer that will just tell you that you're halfway through, so don't be concerned. But shrimps, flying chickens, and side-to-side planks. All right, so again, you get to determine how many reps of each of these exercises you do before you decide, all right, I'm ready to start heading back or heading into the next exercise, okay? If there are any exercises in this particular rotation that you're not crazy about, I understand. We all have exercises that we enjoy more, maybe feel stronger on, and exercises that we are not as crazy on. That is totally normal. The only thing I ask is that you give each exercise a fair shake. Try to do at least 5 reps of every exercise, all right? And then, you know, if you're like, okay, I really just want to move forward, then you absolutely can. That's the beauty of this setup. But give yourself the opportunity to surprise yourself, because that's the thing. A lot of times we don't like exercises because we have not built up the necessary strength and stamina in a particular joint or muscle group. And, you know, so we go, well, I just don't like that exercise. I'm not going to do it a ton. But as we keep getting stronger and keep gaining more power and stamina, it is a really good idea to check back in with some of those exercises and go, because it's entirely possible that you'll go, holy crap, that felt so much easier than it did before. And you can surprise yourself that way. It's not always going to happen. Sometimes you check back in and you're like, all right, I checked back in, I still don't like it, and that's fine too. But always touch base and see how you're feeling, see if anything's shifted since the last time you tried something. All right, I use myself as an example whenever I can. For me, exercises that required a lot of engagement in my shoulders were really hard for me. I just did not have the strength and stamina in my shoulders to maintain things like mountain climbers or kick-throughs or even push-ups to a certain extent. But when I ended up with some chronic shoulder issues, I started doing some PT exercises for my shoulders for strengthening them. And when I went back to all of these exercises that I had really disliked for so long, I was just absolutely astounded because suddenly they felt so much easier. Suddenly I was like, oh, I actually can do these exercises. The problem was that I hadn't given myself the time to build up my strength in my shoulders particularly. And that was really wonderful and satisfying. It felt like I had achieved a goal that I had written off, you know? I had succeeded at something that I didn't even realize I was working towards. So, always check back in with things and see what's changed, if anything's changed. And again, we all have things we enjoy and things we don't. And I'm a very big believer in finding the things that you enjoy and focusing on them rather than trying to force yourself into an activity that you don't like. All right, back to those cross jacks, my friends. Yeah, back to those cross jacks. I think it's super important to actually pay attention to your likes and dislikes. But I also think that it's nice to test things again every once in a while, because the fact of the matter is our preferences and our tastes change over time. I am not the same person that I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and the things I enjoy in terms of movement and exercise are not necessarily the same things that I enjoyed, you know? And again, also, when you start one fitness routine and you get stronger and you get more power and you get more stamina, sometimes that provides the breakthrough that you didn't know you needed in another exercise or activity. So check back in on things, but don't try and force yourself to do something that you don't enjoy. So if you don't like running, don't feel like running is a critical component of your fitness activity. It isn't. You're getting a great workout just here on the stream, my friends. You do not need to also be a runner. Oh, man. I'm not sure what that was responding to. Probably something about AMRAPs, but regardless, yes, that is correct. All right, where are we? Okay, we are going to do, about knee push-ups. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's do one more perpetual motion set, 1 minute intervals. All right, really round out class, my friends. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, our 3 exercises for this last set, and yes, you are still cross-jacking. I know, I love you all. You're doing great work. Our 3 exercises for this last set. Let's do, you know what? Let's just do some regular squats. I don't think I've ever actually done that. I always do like up to a knee or something like that. Let's just take our feet about shoulder width, maybe slightly wider, and just squat down and up, down and up, down and up. All right, making sure the knees are going safely over the feet each time. If they're trying to cave in towards each other, again, narrow your stance. Oh my God, my pants are offset. That's gonna drive me nuts. All right, that's better. Okay, so you've got your squats. Then I want you to give me a front plank. All right, so shoulders directly over elbows. So we've got that nice perpendicular line between the forearm and the ground, and just hanging out here for a bit. And then our third exercise is going to be, it's going to be ankle reaches, I think. So legs straight up in the air, contract those abdominals to lift your shoulders and chest off the ground. One hand to the outside of the opposite ankle, and back and forth and back and forth. Alrighty? So, squats, front plank, ankle reaches. For our final perpetual motion, I am going to make you, okay, I shouldn't have talked it up like that because I do want you to go back into cross jacks at the end of this so that we can go into calf awareness, alrighty? But I promise calf awareness is nice and easy. So you'll barely feel it. All right, so you're cross jacking. And as soon as you hear that horn, we're just doing some squats. Yeah. So we talk a lot about the knee positioning for these. Another thing that you want to focus on is that core engagement, all right? We want to make sure that we're keeping a flat back as we come down, all right? Not letting ourselves curve over or hyperextending the back like that, all right? So engaging that core as we come down, we'll keep that back nice tabletop position. All right, so as I frequently have cause to bring up in class, there are a few things that we do movement-wise that are not aided by paying attention to our core engagement. This one, we obviously need to pay attention to our core engagement for front planks. That is kind of a requirement. And I do also need you to make sure that you are breathing the whole time, okay? When we get into these held positions, it can be really easy for us to go, oh, well, I don't want to be moving around because I don't want to move out of the position that I'm holding. So I'm going to hold my breath, and that'll help keep me in this nice position. Well, the problem with that is your muscles are still working really hard, and they still need that oxygen, okay? Just because you're not moving around does not mean that they don't still need that oxygen. So you do need to make sure that you are able to breathe the whole time that you are in that front plank, okay? And when you're in any held position like that, all right, it is really, really important to pay attention to your breathing and to not convince yourself that held position means held breath, okay? Now we're doing our ankle reaches, making sure that the abdominals are what are driving the movement, all right? So we talk a lot about compensating, especially in ab exercises, compensating with other muscle groups. And we don't want to do that, all righty? So always check in on that. All right, back to those squats. Second time through these exercises. Woo! And again, checking in on your form every time. Every time you start an exercise, I want you to check in on your form and make sure you feel confident in it, okay? I don't care if it's the first time through or the fourth time through, because things change over the course of an interval, right? Things that feel really easy that first time through, as we build up more fatigue in the muscles, we get to that point where they become harder and harder, and where if we're not paying focused attention, we will start to lose our form. And that sets us up for training ourselves in bad movement patterns, and that sets us up for potentially injuring ourselves. So we always, always, always want to focus on form. No matter what you're doing, no matter how many reps you've already done, always focusing in on that form. Man, last week or so has definitely been forget ab day. It's really just been ab week. So yeah, I love that. I know that some of you may not. I just want you to know I recognize I'm doing it. Hey, that's helpful, right? Oh my goodness. But you know what, friends? The other good thing to remember is that we are almost to the end of class. So, we still have to go back into the cross jacks really briefly at the end of the set so that we can get into calf awareness, which is going to help us to relax and cool down a little bit. But we're on the home stretch. So those pockets of energy that you've been saving can come into use now. They don't have to be held back anymore. So think of it, again, if we use the half marathon analogy, think of it as you've finished 13 miles, you're on that last 0.1. You can see the finish line and you are digging in and you're finding that last bit of energy that even you weren't quite sure was there and using it to really get yourself across the finish line, okay? So definitely, especially right now, as we go into our final sets of these 3 exercises, I want you to really see what you have left and see if you can push for a little more intensity, push for a little more power, maybe push for a little more speed, who knows? All right, just remember that finish line is in sight. It is right in front of you. You've got friends and family on either side cheering like crazy because you have just done something absolutely amazing. You have made it through an hour of a really intense class where you have not gotten to stop moving the whole time, and you have made it through. And that is incredibly impressive, and I always want you to leave class being super proud of yourselves, because I am super proud of you. This is intense, and yeah, it takes time. You have dedicated an hour of your time to taking care of your body and taking care of your health, and that's huge. And we live in a society that frequently tries to convince us that we don't have time to care for ourselves. We don't have time to put into an exercise class or a bike ride or a hike up a mountain. And it's simply not true. So I want you to, as we finish out these front planks and head into our ankle reaches, I want you to have a big grin on your face as best you can while we are finishing out yet another core exercise. But I want you to be so friggin' proud of yourself, of what you've achieved, and to remember that even though you have to stand up right now and go super briefly back into cross jacks, really just for enough time for me to shift the timer, you have made it through class, and all that's left is cooling down, and then you will be able to take a shower, to make some dinner, and to relax for the rest of the night, however you want to. So really quickly, my friends, really quickly, back into those cross jacks, just so that I can change one setting, and then as soon as you hear the timer go off, you will be balancing flat on one foot. Hey. centering, bringing our breathing back down, bringing our heart rate back down. You don't have to move around anymore. You don't have to jump. You don't have to do anything except for hold this balance, all right? So step one is really just settling into it. Now, when we do a balance like this, we want to focus any micro adjustments that we need to make to maintain the balance. We want to manage those from the foot and the ankle, okay? We don't want to be waving our arms around. All right, switch side. We don't want to be, leaning our torso in lots of different directions. We want to just stand here and maybe need to make small adjustments in the foot and the ankle. How do we do that? By engaging our stabilizing muscle groups. So we start with the core, and that brings our entire torso into line. So I can't move or bend. I'm not worried about my arms going anywhere. I've just got one sheet when my core engages. Then I engage the glute on the working leg, and that ties everything together. Same when I engage the quads on the working leg, all right? Just got one sheet that my ankle can balance much more effectively. All right, when the timer goes off, we switch back to the first side, and now we are balancing up on the ball of the foot, okay? So same thing, but harder. And recognizing that it's gonna be harder, all the same notes that I gave you still apply, but yeah, you're probably gonna fall out more. And so for this, what I want you to focus on when you feel like you are going to fall out, try not to actually let yourself fall. Instead, if you're up here in this balance, you're like, I can't hold it, I want you to bring that heel down as controlled as possible. Shift, reset, try again, and then repeat as needed, all right? So, yeah, we recognize that we will probably come in and out of this, all right, other side, a number of times, but even when we have to do that, just the act of controlling, bringing our heel back down to the ground helps to really engage that calf, okay? You'll notice me moving around on my mat a lot as I reset, and that's because the surface that I'm on, these mats, they're very thick and they're very flexible. So I'm not on a stable surface for this balance, which obviously makes it even harder. So frequently what I'll do is just shift, try and find a flat surface, and then restart. I don't know if it actually helps, but it helps me psychologically. All right, when the timer goes off, back to the first side, and now you're rocking back and forth, up on the ball, then back on the heel. Up on the ball, then back on the heel. Hang on, I just need to move the mat for a second. All right, so up on the ball, back on the heel, up on the ball, back on the heel. Check in on that core. Is it still engaged? If it's not, you're probably wobbling around a little bit or having difficulty moving from up on the ball to back on the heel and back, all right? So check in on that. Make sure that you are still using those stabilizing muscle groups. They are still important, okay? No matter what we're doing in this sequence, we want to be checking in on those muscle groups and using them as best we can. All right, other side. Up on the ball, back on the heel, up on the ball, back on the heel. You don't need to be going for speed, all right? you can really just focus in on the movement. And when you rock back onto the heel, you do not need to be keeping your body in a straight line, all right? I always let my butt come a little bit behind me when I rock, so up on the ball, back on the heel, okay? And that just helps me to maintain the movement, because if I was trying to keep a straight up and down trunk, then I would be putting a lot of pressure onto my shins that they're not necessarily ready for. All right, when the timer goes off, last movement, both feet on the ground, rock back on your heels, and stay on your heels until the timer ends, okay? So balance, if you can, shift around if you need to, and then balance again, keeping those toes off the ground. They do not come back to the ground until you hear that final horn. Keep that core engaged to help manage the balance. Make sure you're breathing, all right? Breathing, as always, important. We're just moving back and forth, trying to hold that balance as best we can, but rather than fall out, let yourself shift your heels, okay? All right, 10 seconds left. So hold as best you can, engage that core, keep those toes up, and done. Woo! That was not my best balance day, but you know what? That's all right, because I still got the engagement in my shins, and that was oh, thank you for the legging adjustment. Oh, good. I'm glad to know that I wasn't the only one that it was driving a little bit nuts. Oh my God. Yes. Are you aware of your calves now? I'm willing to bet you're aware of your calves now. Ah, my dears, what a wonderful class. Woo! I am feeling it. I am definitely looking forward to my post-workout shower, that's for sure. And maybe making myself something with my homemade bread. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw my rest day ramblings post today. I should have put it up last night, but by the time the bread came out of the oven, it was 11 p.m. and I had to go to bed because I had work in the morning. So I didn't have time for social media posting, but I can confirm that they are delicious, which is wonderful, because yeah, every time I make bread, I freak out that I've ruined it somehow. And it's never true. Like, it's delicious. Are there things that I want to get better at in the process? Absolutely. But it's still delicious every single time. And, you know, it's miles healthier than buying bread from the grocery store, you know, because they have to use a lot of preservatives to extend shelf life. And I don't need to worry about that. For the bread in my kitchen, I can just eat through it and then make myself more. So I am very pleased. I'm very pleased that I made it. I'm hoping to set up a sourdough starter at some point this week so that I can start playing around with sourdough bread. You know, because I reached the bread making stage of quarantine a little bit late. And that's okay. Oh God, macarons. I am not crazy about macarons. They're just not my style of cookie, but I do acknowledge that they can be excellent when they are made well. If you follow the rocket science, baking is fascinating. Like, everybody talks about how important the science is when you're baking, and to a large extent, sure, but I also have to remind myself every time that that even the people have been baking bread for generations, well before they had fancy thermometers to check their dough temperature, well before they had super accurate measuring cups and spoons and stuff like that. And so, you know, if I am not absolutely perfect, I'll probably still turn out a pretty good loaf of bread, because, you know, the science is important, but there's more room for play than I think people give baking credit for. And when you have anxiety, somebody telling you you must do it this way or you're going to fuck the entire dish up is really awful. So if you haven't tried baking because it sounds intimidating, just remember, all of the accoutrements that we have in our modern kitchens, a lot of those things are relatively new in the grand scheme of things, and people still made delicious loaves of bread. All right, so even if you don't get the ratios perfect, even if you don't have the perfect proofing time, it'll probably still taste delicious. Yeah, no, I think macarons are incredibly hard to make well. They're just also, I always find them way too saccharine for my taste, like way too overwhelmingly sugary. And I'm also not crazy about the texture. It's weird, you know, it's a personal thing. Some people love macarons. Awesome. Rock on, my friends. But yeah, they look fiddly AF to make, so I'm kind of glad that I don't enjoy them, so I don't need to worry about learning how to make them. All right, my loves. What a great class. That was so much fun. Thank you for joining me. What a great way to kick off our week. And maybe literally kicking off your week this time if you did have vacation yesterday. But we've got 3 more classes this week. Tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time. All of my classes are in Mountain Time. We've got Jump Around, our weekly cardio class. Then Friday at 6 p.m. we've got Functional Home Fitness, where we do weight training using objects you can find around the house. And then on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. is the weekend kickoff, which is our awesome strength and stamina focused bodyweight class. So I hope that you join me for any or all of those classes, because they are all a good time. Yeah. No, I mean, that's honestly a good lesson for most parts of life. Just try and learn a little more about why things happen the way they do. You don't have to be an expert in every single field, but even having a baseline level of knowledge can give you the tools that you need to be much more creative in the things that you do. And that extends to exercise as well. You know, we don't all have to be MDs, you know, with a hugely encyclopedic knowledge of anatomy, but even learning the basics and then learning how to pay attention to how muscles interact as you're moving will really help you and really give you more tools to move safely and effectively, have more fun, and challenge yourself. So yeah, stay curious, my friends. Lifelong learners. Let's be lifelong learners here. All right, yeah, I think I'm going to, speaking of homemade bread, I think I'm going to go take advantage of some of that. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of those handles will be in my end cards, but they're all variations on Blanche Case Fitness. My YouTube channel is where I upload all the VODs from these streams, so you never have to miss a class. Even if you can't make the live cast, I upload on Sundays, so definitely head over there and subscribe. If you want to help support me in making these streams, I do have a coffee account at Blanche Case Fitness. Your donations are always very much appreciated. And if you want to help me keep growing this channel and growing this community, we are a hair away from meeting all of the metrics for Twitch affiliate status, which is just amazing. So please do follow the channel, tell your friends, loved ones, coworkers, anyone looking for an awesome class. I stream 4 days a week. We have a wonderful little community here. We're having a great time, and there's so much more that I want to do and that I'm looking forward to sharing with you all in 2021. So yeah, even if you don't feel like working out, just come and hang out in the chat. We have fun. You can hear me, you know, talk about exercise. You can hear me hold court on pop culture. or you can hear me dig into activism and social justice. Sometimes all three in one class, who knows? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Activision. Yeah, no, I was saying activism, but I fumbled it. So, yeah, not Activision. We don't usually talk about them. I mean, sometimes, maybe. Who knows? Anyway, I'm rambling now and I'm really hungry, and I can tell because I'm rambling. So, I think that's it for tonight. So make sure to finish your water and refill that water bottle and rehydrate yourself. Make sure to get some food so you can start building back those glycogen stores so you can do class again tomorrow. Have a wonderful shower, have an enjoyable evening, whatever you decide to do. And I will see you all back here tomorrow night. Mwah! Have a great night.